Welcome to another WalterFootball.com video. I'm Charlie Campbell, Senior Draft Analyst. Before we get started here, I suggest you click below, speed it up to 1.25 or 1.5. I think that makes the videos a lot better. So this week I'm going to get into a few different topics, kind of do a little bit of a quick hitter on a few things. So first of all, let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons and their change. They fired Dan Quinn, head coach, fired general manager Thomas Dimitroff, and Atlanta clearly was ready for a change. I think Dimitroff is lucky he's lasted as long as he has because the draft record in Atlanta hasn't been that great. I think Dan Quinn did a pretty good job overall for a few years there. Obviously rallied the team last year to a 6-2 finish, got them to a Super Bowl. And I think Atlanta, considering that they haven't drafted that well, did pretty well with that coaching staff. It'll be interesting to see what happens with them down the stretch here. These next 11 games are going to have a huge impact on what direction the team goes after this season. So let's say, because as it stands right now, after firing them, they'd have the second overall pick in the 2021 NFL draft. If this holds true and they end up losing that much, going 1-15 or 2-14 or maybe even 0-16, then I think at that point it makes sense for Atlanta to just do the rebuild. Trade Matt Ryan, trade Julio Jones, trade Grady Jarrett, and just get as many picks as they can for those veterans who are just nearing towards the end of the prime of their careers. Get what you can for them and build around a young quarterback. Assuming Trevor Lawrence goes first and they're picking second, take Justin Fields, build around him, and really restock that roster with young talent. I think that would be the best plan for them with a new head coach and general manager if they're picking that high. Now, if they aren't picking that high, which I think is more likely to happen, I think they're going to start winning some games. I know Raheem Morris, players absolutely love him. They're going to play so hard for him. They're going to hope that he can get that head coaching job there in Atlanta or maybe help him with his next opportunity. And these players are all playing for their next contracts and being on a team next year. So I would be shocked if you see quit with the Falcons over these next 11 games. I think they're going to play hard. So with that being the case, I think they're going to win some games. I think they're going to end up picking lower. I could see them missing out on the top quarterbacks, in which case the next head coach and general manager, you have to decide if you're missing out on Lawrence and Justin Fields. Is Trey Lance good enough to trade Matt Ryan and start the rebuild now? That's going to be a tough decision to make. I think we'll just end up seeing where they're picking, but I think they could definitely win enough where they're going to pick lower, and that rebuild might not be a real option, because if you're not going to get one of those top quarterbacks, I think it would make more sense to kind of reload that roster as much as you can to try and win with Matt Ryan while you still have him and he's still playing at a high level. So now that's the Atlanta Falcons. If you want, I would recommend checking below and in our YouTube videos. I did a video on general manager candidates and head coaching candidates. I think there's some great options available for Atlanta, some definite upgrades. I suggest you check out those videos because I think that the Falcons could really improve the scouting with some of these general manager candidates available, and I think they could get some really good coaches as well. So next topic I wanted to hit on was TJ Vasher, the wide receiver from Texas Tech. I was going to do a video about him last week, but then the Bill O'Brien firing, I thought it would be good to do an aftermath, kind of learning the lessons from that era of incompetence and ineptitude from O'Brien in Houston. But I wrote an article on TJ Vasher, really interesting prospect from Texas Tech. He's fun to watch. He looks his style of play is really similar to A.J. Green. He's just so big and quick, can get downfield, makes a lot of acrobatic, phenomenal leaping grabs, over coverage, really a dynamic receiver. So you would think he'd be getting graded in the early rounds, but actually he's getting graded. A lot of teams are putting him in the third round, and that's because of football character. They say that the dedication just isn't there, the work habits, the desire to be great is lacking, and you can see kind of the results of that lacking football character and him not producing up to his skill sets. As a freshman, sophomore, and junior. This guy is playing in the Big 12 where they hardly play anything close to legitimate defense. He should be lighting it up like we've seen so many Oklahoma receivers or Baylor receivers over the past few years. But he hasn't even had a 1,000-yard season, even though he's 6'6", 210 pounds, and has speed to him. So Vasher is a player that could end up being a steal for someone if he falls in the draft and gets his head straight and gets motivated and works hard. But that football character is really killing him with teams right now in his grade from area scouts and others going through Texas Tech. Now, lastly, I wanted to hit on Liam Eichenberg, the left tackle from Notre Dame. Really interesting player. He's gone, I think, almost a year now without allowing a sack on the quarterback. And coming from Notre Dame and Brian Kelly and that program with what they've developed on the offensive line with Ronnie Stanley and Zach Martin and Quentin Nelson and Mike McGlinchey, all first-round picks. A lot of people have been projecting and thinking Eichenberg will go in the first round, but when I watched him, I just did not see a first-round skill set. I didn't see that kind of quickness and athleticism that you would want out of like a franchise left tackle. Definitely not same caliber of athlete as the four guys who went in the top 16 last April: Andrew Thomas, Jedrick Wills, Tristan Wirfs, Mekhi Becton. That four all have much better skill sets than Eichenberg, in my opinion. So rather than just going with my opinion, because at the end of the day it doesn't mean much, it's not worth anything really, I reached out to scouts to see, this is what I saw. Let me know, does this sound right to you? And everyone got back to me and said, yeah, definitely he's getting graded with, as a day 2 talent, kind of late second, early third round caliber skill set. However, the offensive tackle position, I mean, it's such a critical position in the NFL. You need good edge protection for any competent passing offense. And teams do definitely reach on tackles because they're so hard to find. So now, while Eichenberg might, have that consensus grade around the league of a late second round pick, early third round pick, kind of solid, safe guy, but nothing superstar worthy, nothing overwhelming athletically, he still could end up going higher than that because of the need for offensive tackles around the league. There are plenty of teams that need a long-term left tackle. He has starting potential in the NFL. And we've seen a trend in the league where a lot of offensive line prospects that had day 2 grades in the consensus end up sneaking into the first round. And the results haven't always been great. You have some, bad picks in there, including the likes of Laken Tomlinson and Joshua Garnett. We've seen other late first-round offensive tackles, guys like DJ Humphries, who was a consensus day 2 guy around the league. The Cardinals took him late in the first round. Caleb McGarry with the Falcons a couple years ago, similar kind of thing, consensus, not a first-round pick by any means, but the Falcons took him there. So, most teams don't have 32 players that grade out as first-round picks. Typically, it's around 20. So you're going to have some guys with day 2 grades end up going in the first round and the opening night of the draft. Eichenberg could end up being one of the guys that's kind of on that bubble because of the need for the position, and he's a guy that has a lot of experience, having been a multi-year starter at Notre Dame, and could be viewed as a solid, safe pick. So an interesting player to watch in the draft process to see how he does. It'd really help him to run well at the combine and show well athletically, and help to kind of give an argument against the idea that maybe his speed and athleticism are a little lacking. But that's what I've heard about him. I think he's definitely going to be a prospect to watch here, especially when Notre Dame has some tougher competition later in the season. I wish that they had gotten in that game against Wake Forest to see him go against Carlos Basham, the defensive end there. But that game was postponed, so hopefully we get to see it later. But that's a quick hitter for this week. I'll be back with you guys soon. Check the link below for updated mock draft, updated position rankings, tons of draft coverage on walterfootball.com. Check out Walt's picks. He's been killing it this year, bringing home a lot of money, doing a phenomenal job of picking games. So check out his picks and his clip videos with Jacob if you want to zero in on a game. Those are great. They do a fantastic job. Please like and share the video. I'd really appreciate it. Follow me on Twitter at Draft Campbell. Follow Walt on Twitter at Walter Football, and I'll be back with you guys soon.